Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice.
Hey guys, sorry for the interruption. Really quick announcement for you. And if you're going to be a dental practice owner, you know you're at some point going to have to get a dental practice loan. Whether it's going to be to acquire a dental practice or it's going to be to start a startup dental practice, you're going to have to get a loan. And I'm really proud to say that a company that I've worked with personally dozens of times over the past few years is our first sponsor after 80 episodes of Start Your Dental Practice. And our first sponsor is Bank of America Practice Solutions. So whenever you're going to be getting a new loan, whenever you're going to get a loan for starting your dental practice or acquiring a dental practice, you really want to make sure that you have three things when it comes to that loan. Number one, you want a really great interest rate. Number two, you want to make sure that the company that you're speaking with has a lot of experience and can guide you through the best path to be able to become a practice owner through the loan process. And number three, you want to make sure that the terms associated with that loan are the most advantageous for you. And I'm really happy to say that all three of these things, Bank of America just knocks it out of the park for you. And they've got some really great new promotions that I'm not even sure if one of these that they've even announced anywhere else other than what I'm about to say to you on the Start Your Dental Practice podcast. So, SYDPers, here is the announcement for this. So, number one, interest rates. They've got a couple of really great promotions. The first one is on new acquisitions. The first year of that loan, 1.89% for a dental practice acquisition right now in the first year. That's crazy low. You never even hear of loans dipping below 3%. Nonetheless, less than 2% on that first year. And then after the first year, it's still super competitive compared to everybody else out there because Bank of America always comes in as either the lowest interest rate or one of the lowest interest rates of any banks that are out there. So that's the first part of that. Again, you want to make sure you have a great interest rate. Number two, you want to make sure that the company you're working with has a lot of dental practice experience. I don't know if any company out there in the world has more dental practice loan financing experience than Bank of America does. They're fantastic at it. Their reps are really good, and they're going to be able to tell you if the deal is going to be able to get done or if it's not going to be able to get done. So they don't waste your time at all, and they can help you understand the different nuances throughout that process. Fantastic. The third piece of this is that the best terms. So here's the really cool part. A lot of people don't realize this, but whenever you are buying a practice or starting a practice up, most banks, if not, 90% of them out there require that you have disability insurance as well as life insurance to cover the payments for that loan as well as to cover the total value of those loans. This goes up and down quite a bit for different types of loan sizes as well as different risk profiles for the person receiving the loans. But let's call it $600 a month for those insurance rates. Very, kind of middle of the line for you. $600 a month you have to pay in addition to the loan to be able to have those insurances funded to be able to have that policy, to have that loan. Bank of America is getting rid of that completely. So you do not have to have that. If you think about that $600 a month, that's $7,200 a year. Over 10 years, that's $72,000 you're going to save by going with Bank of America Practice Solutions. It's really no brainer. If you're going to have to get a loan, which you are going to have to do 100%, you may as well go with a company that has great interest rates, has great experience with the industry, and has the best terms out there in the market today. So if you're currently in the process of shopping loans, 100% give Bank of America Practice Solutions a try. And if you would mention that you came through the SYDP community, it would help out the podcast a lot and also allow us to give back to our very gracious sponsors. Again, this is an advertisement, a paid advertisement. If you go to them, I will, have more advertising revenue come to me. So if you enjoy the podcast, I would appreciate you helping out our sponsors. And if you are interested in that loan process, just text the word bank loan, one word, BANKLOAN, to 33444. Again, that's bank loan to 33444, and we will reach out to you. Thanks, guys. What's up, guys? Jonathan Van Horn here. Today, we're going to have a self-hosted episode of Start Your Dental Practice. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about something that we've mentioned briefly here and there, but I think it's about time that I kind of come out and just tell everybody how I see the most successful practice acquisitions occur. What I mean is, if you're a person out there that is thinking of, hey, I want to acquire a dental practice, that is the path for me, then this episode is the one for you, because we're going to be talking about how to know when you're ready, how to pick the right location, how to find practices for sale, and then finally how to decide on which practice you want to acquire. And so this is going to be a really fun episode, and we may even make it 2 parts depending on how long-winded I get. So here we go. So how to know when you're ready to acquire a dental practice. Now, I personally believe that you should not be considering purchasing a dental practice until you can comfortably be producing at least $3,500 a day in your doctor production. The reason I have that number in my head is that if you have $3,500, you work 4 days a week, 48 weeks out of the year, it's going to put you right at $675,000 a year in doctor production. So, if you're able to get to that level, $675,000 of your personal production, that turns out into about $56,000 a month that you're able to personally produce. As long as you can do that, then you have the ability to have a $1 million dental practice. And really that's kind of the sweet spot of where you can start really making a lot of money in dental practices, is once you break that $1 million barrier. So I tell a lot of people, get to $3,500. Sometimes it takes other people's tutelage. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more experience. Some people do it faster than other people do. But be able to get to that very comfortably. Be able to do that off of as few patients as possible. You don't want to be doing that over, seeing 50 patients a day and you do $3,500 off of 50 patients. You want to be doing that as a low number of patients as possible. I don't have a specific number for you guys to do that, but generally the smaller is better, because what happens is if you see more patients than what you're currently seeing and you're able to do $3,500 very comfortably, then that means you have a very high amount of capacity, and your capabilities could be really high to produce a whole lot more during a day. And at the end of the day, the most production comes from the dentist, which will be yourself, and the most profit comes from the dental procedures. So we want to make sure that we're going to maximize that if we're going to go out and make this really big purchase of a dental practice. So that is what you need to know from a production standpoint. I don't really care how you get to it. You don't have to be doing implants to be able to do that. You don't have to be able to do specialty procedures. That can be bread and butter dentistry, crowns, root canals, or crowns and amalgams, whatever it is that you guys are doing, or fillings. Sorry, not amalgams. That's what I think needs to be done for production, to kind of give yourself in your head what, the bare minimum I can do. If you can do more than that, you're golden. So that's the first step of knowing when you're ready, the production level. The second level, and again, these are all kind of intermixed. They're not just one or the other, and you have to do it in a certain order. And the second is that you've got to have the courage to be able to go out there and do this. If you're, not all in on this, then the acquisition, process will not be the best thing for you. The reason is because there's a lot of people that are wanting to acquire practices. In order to find the best possible opportunities, you got to put a little bit of legwork into it. And I don't really care what people say. The doctor is typically the one that finds the practices. And so you got to be out there and you got to be working on it, and you got to be you got to be spending the time, energy, and effort to be able to find these good opportunities so that you can set your best foot forward whenever you start growing your own practice. So you've got to have the courage to say, hey, what I'm in right now is not what I want long term for myself, for my family, for my patients, for, whatever it is you find in your life that's leading you down this path. You've got to have the courage to act on this situation. You got to have the courage to move forward, and you got to have the courage to be able to lead your new team. So, leadership is a great skill to have. And let me touch back on courage real quick. If you have courage, remember that courage is not the absence of fear. You can be fearful all you want, but you just have to have enough courage to move past that fear. I think that's maybe a Winston Churchill quote, or something like that, but it's a really, really profound thing to think about. It's not the absence of fear. It is literally just you moving forward with, in the face of fear, in spite of fear. So, next thing is you have to have a leadership. You have to be willing to be a leader. You need to try and develop that skill to become a leader. The reason being is that you're going to have people that are going to be depending on you. You're going to have staff members that are going to be depending on you. You're going to have patients that are going to be depending on you, and your community will depend on you a little bit as well. And so you got to be willing to step into that limelight, be willing to move forward, and be willing to act in that capacity. So you're going to have to be able to, set expectations with people, hold people accountable to those expectations, and, set a pathway for them to be able to do the things that they need to do, to be able to make this process as beneficial to everyone involved as possible. So you've got to be willing to flex that leadership muscle, or to develop that skill. You don't have to be just this, masterful leader from day one. You just have to be willing to have the courage to be able to work on that skill and look inside yourself and say, hey, I'm going to work on this consistently because I know that it's going to directly, affect the, level of success I have or don't have in my business. And finally, the last one is, I get this one for some people. Some people this isn't going to be an issue for, but you're going to have to be willing to risk the fact that your current boss could find out that you're looking for a practice. The dental community is not giant. I do know some older doctors that just don't stay inside of the network very often. The younger groups seem to be a little bit more connected than the older ones. Definitely not par for the course all over the country, but just in different, separate segments. Seems like there's some people are more or less, in tune with what the network is saying. And if you're out there looking, you're probably gonna have people talking about it if you're doing your job, to try and find the right opportunities. And as long as you are able to do that, you should, you're gonna have to be willing for that to happen, unless you want to do this in a secret fashion. And then I guarantee you won't be as successful when it comes to finding a lot of practices for sale. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about the location of this dental practice. So, we talked about when to know when you're ready to be able to acquire a practice. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to find the right location for you. So when I'm talking about all this stuff, I'm talking about it from a wide perspective of, okay, how do we know when we're ready? How do we know where we want the practice to be, what area it's going to be? And then how do we find a bunch of opportunities available that we can select from in order to pick the best one for us? And how do we know if that is the right one? So when you're talking about the location, the very first thing you have to realize is that wherever you're going to be buying a practice, you're going to need to live somewhere fairly close. That could mean that you're going to live an hour one way or the hour the other way. It depends on whatever your drive commute radius can be that makes you comfortable. That's the first thing you have to understand. It's the first thing you have to figure out is what type of areas are you willing to live in for this business to succeed. I'm going to tell you, the living away from the place where your practice is located is definitely a viable opportunity in today's day and age. However, if you're in a smaller community and you live somewhere else, you're going to have a much more harder time growing that practice, simply because you're not going to be in the area, in the community, networking with people and meeting people and having them, shaking hands and kissing babies, basically. If you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to build the goodwill around your community unless you're like the only person in town, only dentist in town. So, any, smaller town, when I say smaller town, I'm talking, 30, 40,000 people and below. Anything above that, and you can probably get away with living a little bit farther away and depend on marketing a bit more. But, I still believe that you're going to have the most success if you live in the community that you're serving, Because if you're going around, your family's there, if you have a spouse or if you have kids, you're going to be meeting people and they're going to need a dentist. And if you're a friend with them or you're in the community, they're so much more likely to come to you if you're in that community. So again, pick an area you want to live. It's going to leave you with the highest level of success opportunities in my mind. However, it's not, I'm not saying it can't be done that you can live in a different area. I'm just saying your opportunity is going to be more likely to succeed, if you live in that community and act in that community and are a piece of that community of building that up, as a community. So take that for what it's worth. That's just the 2 cents from a guy that sees a lot of dental practices and see which ones succeed and which ones don't. So, next piece is patient demographics. While you've got to pick where you want to live, you also have to understand that where it is that you're going to be. If you follow my advice about where to live, inside of the community that you're going to be serving, you're going to have to realize, who it is you're going to be serving. Like, do you, just because it's an area of the country where it has great backpacking or kayaking or, great shopping or, sledding or lakes or whatever it is, golf courses, wherever it is you want to live, you've got to realize that wherever you go, those patients are going to be who you're going to be serving. So make sure it's the type of patients you want to be serving. If you're blue collar, white collar, whatever it is, go to an area where your patients are that you want to live. Sounds simplistic, but a lot of people miss that. That if you, go into an area of the country that is, or even an area of a city that is very, very, high class and you are just completely turned off by really expensive purses and expensive cars and things like that, that may not be the best place for you to practice. It may, so it just depends on who it is you want to service in your medical career. So be very aware of that. It will also be reflected down to how they pay you. So, if it's going to be fee for service, if it's going to be PPO, if you're going to have a membership club, if it's going to be Medicaid, whatever it may be, you're going to have to be aware that those patient demographics directly correlate to what type of payments you're going to be receiving. If I could do away with all insurances and Medicaid, I would. I think that, regardless of the fact that I think that they're great for being able to give access to care, I hate that my clients have to take haircuts because of those things existing, which is a big reason I'm a big fan of membership plans now. But that's me going off on a tangent. To recap, patient demographics, be aware of what they are, because you're also going to need to know, as far as what you're interested in professionally, medically. So for example, if you're going to be in an area that has a higher, more elderly community, more elderly population, it's going to make a whole heck of a lot of sense for you to be able to, do some, grow some, skills professionally that are going to be able to help service those people, specifically those types of people, so that you can be a part of that community and help those people in that community. So, if you're in a younger community in a more business area, maybe you want to focus more on like Invisalign and things like that. It makes a difference. So just be aware of your patient demographics, because it's gonna make a difference on how you practice for the next, 20, 30, 40 years, however many years you're going to be practicing in this location. So we've talked about area to live and the patient demographics. The next one is probably the most complex to discuss. The first two are not simple by any means, any shape, form, or fashion. But this next one is somewhat complex to consider. The next one is competition. Who, if you go into this area, are going to be your competition? What are they offering? What are they not offering? Who are they servicing? Who are they not servicing? How are they marketing? What areas of opportunity exist? There's a lot of different things you've got to take into consideration whenever you start looking at the competition that's out there. There's more than just the dentist to population ratio, which is a very famous, ratio that's out there that people like to, hang their hat on or try and say, well, it's a 2,500 to 1 dentist to population ratio or dental practice to population ratio. I find a lot of the times when they say dentist to population ratio, they never consider the fact that there could be more than one dentist in a location. That does affect things. It could be, a group that's in an area. It could be 10 doctors in one spot, and you only look and see one practice, and all of a sudden that 2,500 to 1 ratio, if there's only 2,500 people in that town, all of a sudden becomes 250 to 1. So it makes a big difference. It makes a real big difference. So if you're going to be, plopping down $1 million, 500,000 to $1 million, then you want to know who all's in that area. You want to know who's in the industry. You want to know what's being offered. You want to know what's not being offered, because you have to be able to be ready to strike on those opportunities. Now, in some areas, just because there is competition. So for example, if you're in an area that has, it's very business oriented. It has a lot of people that are, white collar, and they're going to be very cosmetic in nature, or, have, do Invisalign or whatever it is. Then, just because there's somebody else doing that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing that. It could mean that there's a lot of opportunity there. It could mean that there's excess opportunity, that you could really capitalize on if that person is not marketing very effectively. So those are always things you have to consider. And I do believe that competition is one of those things that would 100%, eliminate some practices from your search, just because of the fact that if you're in an area that's just super competitive and you're going to be acquiring a practice that's not very big, you're going to have a very, very, very big hill to climb in order to be able to be successful. Now, if you're buying a practice that's already at the top of that hill, then, you can just kind of step in to being the guy to knock off the hill, which is a really, really powerful place to be. So there is opportunity there. I guess if I were to put that into simpler terms, what I would say is that the more competition there is in an area means the less likely you should be willing to purchase a small practice. And when I say small, I'm talking about one of these practices that does less than 500,000 in revenue. I just don't think that those are really, in most situations, those are not typically great opportunities. There are definitely cases where they are good opportunities, but they're not, I see much more that aren't great opportunities than are great opportunities when it comes to those types of practices. So, when considering a location, you have to figure out, what area you want to live in with you and your family, raise a family, etc., be a part of a community, potentially, whatever it is. You have to figure out who it is you're going to be serving, which are the patients, make sure that they're the people you'd want to be serving. And then you also have to figure out who your competition could potentially be. Look at the people that are younger, look at the people older, and you don't really know. And again, we haven't even talked about how to find the practices for sale yet. Some of these people, if it's in a very competitive area, or in a somewhat competitive area, if you step in and replace somebody, then it may not be a big deal. It may not be that big of a deal, but you definitely want to figure that out, on the front end rather than on the back end after you've already acquired the practice and are now just, struggling to, keep from shrinking 10% every year. So that is how to find the best location for you. Okay. So in this segment, I'm going to talk to you about how to find practices that are available to purchase. This is an area where a lot of people get stuck because they're passively looking, not actively looking. They just don't really know the best way to be able to approach this situation. And it's not easy. 100%. It is not easy to be able to figure these things out. It is actually pretty complex, to find really great opportunities. So the way I tell people to approach this is, you've got to focus basically on 3 different areas. You have people you've got to talk to, you've got dentists you've got to talk to, and you've got websites you got to look at. Now, believe me, I understand that dentists are people too. But I separate them completely because they are very powerful people that you need to be talking to. So to get into the first group of those people, There's a laundry list of people you need to contact if you found the area you want to live in, that you need to start contacting to attempt to try and find a practice for sale. And these are in no particular order. These are just, the list of people that I've heard, from clients that have purchased practices, or conversations that I've had with people that, where they ended up hearing about an opportunity, they ended up being a really great opportunity. Again, I may use numbers, but there's no particular order to contact people. You just want to contact all of them. So you want to be contacting brokers. I know that there's a lot of people out there that aren't giant fans of brokers. And there's definitely ones that I've not enjoyed working with. There's definitely ones that I've felt have been, either too far on the seller side or too far on the buyer side, or they've been, they've talked out of both sides of their mouth at the same time when it comes to the seller and the buyer. But there are definitely good ones out there. And to be honest with you, they sometimes have pretty good practices for sale. If you absolutely have to, they're not a terrible avenue to go down, to be able to find a practice for sale in your area. It's sometimes you just got to pony up and take your lumps, whenever you're looking for practices. And brokers, they have access to them. Their job is to go and find these deals. They could have an opportunity available for you that could be a good one for you. The one caveat I will give you with that, the one piece of advice I will give you with that is, don't use the broker to figure out if it's a good idea for you to buy that practice or not. Very rarely have I found brokers that have been, have been really good about saying, no, this is not a good practice for you. I found a lot that have been kind of mild about it, but I've never seen one. There's a guy in Dentaltown. I think his name's, Tom, Bonsack, I think. And he talks a lot about how he does that a lot, but he's, from my experience, he's the exception, not the norm. Typically what happens, if you're looking to buy a practice and you talk to a broker, they're going to try and find an opportunity for you. And literally one of the first opportunities they find, usually they come back and they try and match it with whatever it was you were looking for, whether it is what you were looking for or not. So be very wary of that. I'm not throwing people under the bus. I'm not saying that they're not doing their job or they're being, they're not doing something right. It's just that it's kind of their job to go out there and find you opportunities and bring them back to you. And they're biased in that because they just did some work to go find something, and they don't get paid unless you buy the practice they found. So be very wary of that. Be very, very wary of that. So that's one place to look. Brokers. Other ones, your supply reps. So contact all the supply reps in the areas. They are in these practices almost every day. They are the ones who are going to know everyone. They're going to know if people are maybe willing to retire or getting ready to retire. Maybe they have a position available in an area. It's within their best interest to be able to give you that favor, because if they know one of their clients are leaving or selling, they want to be able to have a good in with the next guy that's coming in. They want to be able to have that relationship on the front end. So if you tell a supply rep that you're looking, they're gonna keep their ears open because they see you as a potential client in a few months. So supply reps, make sure that you talk to them. They have a lot of access to the docs, and they know a lot about the industry and the area that you're in. Your market may vary, but that's typically what we see. And don't just talk to the dental supply people. Also talk to the equipment reps. Talk to any specialty reps for, if you offer Invisalign, talk to whoever the Invisalign rep or whomever it may be in your area for whatever it is that they do, because they may know of opportunities in your area for you to be able to come in and buy something that you already are able to give to patients. So very cool stuff. It's a very good way to be able to find really good practices for sale. And not a lot of people go that route, which always surprises me. Another area, dental CPAs, attorneys, financial planners, etc. Go talk to them. See if they have if they know of any opportunities. I have brokers that contact me whenever a practice is for sale. And sometimes, I'll send those out to people that I know that are looking. Most people realize that, I'm geared towards the younger crowd, the people looking to purchase practices, not people trying to sell practices. So I don't always know of all the opportunities for selling practices. But usually I know the people that are looking for the practices. So don't just talk to dental CPAs, talk to dental attorneys, any dental financial planners, basically anyone that is very in depth inside of the dental industry, and they're going to be able to help you find these opportunities. So the next one, any type of local dental associations, your state association. A lot of the time, for example, in Arkansas, you can kind of sign up for opportunities that the association finds out about, and sometimes they'll send out an email blast or something like that. Especially if like a local doctor passes away, unfortunately, that's typically the first people that send out a broadcast is that association, which typically means there's an opportunity for a practice to be acquired, as well as to be able to help out a family that probably has just lost somebody. So definitely an opportunity. It's definitely something that I've seen happen in the past that has been really helpful in finding practices. And that's state side, local, everything inside. Next one, study clubs. If you know of any study clubs in any areas, make sure people know that you're looking. Because if you're networking, if you're out there talking to people, you're just increasing your potential and opportunity for people to be able to say, hey, I do know of a practice for sale. I was just talking to Dr. Smith down the road and he's got one for sale. And that adds, an extra opportunity for you to be able to analyze and consider, in your search for the great dental practice. Bankers are another one. Bankers do know about it, especially the dental specific ones. So like Bank of America Practice Solutions, I 100% have talked to my rep about opportunities, for clients before, and they've, had really good practices that were opportunities that were out there. So just be aware that they're 100%, because those bankers talk to everybody. They talk to everybody we just talked about. They talk to the brokers, they talk to the reps, they talk to the attorneys, they talk to the CPAs, financial planners, associations, state clubs. They talk to all of them. And so they will know about those too. So talk to your bankers, especially the big ones, that are whatever they are in your area, because they do find out about them pretty quickly. It's pretty good. So those are the people you should be speaking to, that are not dentists. Whenever you're talking to dentists, I'm going to keep them separate because I'm going to talk about them a little bit longer than I did the other people. And the reason being is that you never know whenever someone is going to be ready to sell a dental practice. You'd be surprised how often, people 5, 10, 15 years into to practice ownership, they just decide it's not for them. They decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be an owner. Or maybe I don't want to be an owner here. Or maybe they've gone through a divorce. Maybe they just don't like where they live. Maybe they didn't look at, the things we talked about in the location area. And it's something that could be a good fit for you because, you've already made those considerations. You already know what you're wanting to do. So dentist, you've got to be understanding that not everyone, you're not going to know if someone's wanting to sell or not until you ask them. Or you present that opportunity to them. And so, whenever you're approaching other dentists for this, there's a few different ways to do it. There's really, I came up with really, 4 main ways I've heard about it. I guess there's a 5th one in there too, which I just thought of as I was speaking. So the first one is lunches. I find that many people, many docs are willing to network with other doctors, new dentists in the area, and you ask them to go out to lunch. A lot of the times they'll oblige. Everybody wants to go out to lunch and say, hey, Dr. Smith, I'm new to the area and, or I'm considering moving into the area. Thought I'd take you out to lunch, just to meet some people in the area and network and, colleague to colleague. I'd love to take you out to lunch sometime soon. Is there a good time, in 2 weeks that you can come meet at wherever your favorite place to eat lunch is, and do that. And who knows, you may make a new best friend. Maybe not likely, but at least you'll meet a colleague in an area and someone you can speak to about what's going on in the industry in your area. It's a really good way to be able to network and insert yourself into a community, especially into a network if you're not from the area. It's a really good way to be able to do that. So lunch, fantastic. Lunch meetings are fantastic. Drinks after work, another great way. Whatever it may be, some type of get together for you to be able to talk to them about, being able to, your purpose for that meeting is to find out more about them, find out more about the area, find out more about, their practice, and finally figure out if they or anyone they know of are looking to potentially sell a practice. Because you're in the market. And you don't even have to lead with, is your practice for sale? You can start with just saying, hey, If you ever know of anybody that is looking to retire or maybe phase out or whatever it may be, I'm in the market for buying a dental practice, and I'm really interested in this area. So if you ever hear of anybody, be sure, please be sure to let me know. And I'll tell you would be surprised how often that singular piece of questioning leads to someone thinking like, you know what? I do know somebody that might be willing to sell. You should go talk to, Dr. Billy down the road, because he was talking to me, 2 years ago about how he's just really tired all the time. And all of a sudden you've got another lunch you can go make. So lunches are a great way. Conversations, meetings, great way to be able to have that happen. The next way is, cold calling practices. That's way more informal and a little bit more intrusive. So you can do the same thing over lunch, that you can do it over the phone as well. It's way less personal because of the fact that you're actually just calling an office and saying, hey, is Dr. Smith available? I'd like to talk to him about potentially purchasing his practice. Or calling, hey, Dr. Smith there. I'm a new dentist in the area, and I'd just like to introduce myself, say hi, and see what's going on. And you may be able to get to talk to the doctor, or may be able to call back and say, well, when is a good time for me to be able to call back? I understand he was a patient right now. When's the time he takes phone calls? And then, if they tell you when to make the call, you call in and you talk to him. You do the same exact thing we were talking about doing over lunch. Say hi, get to know him, whatever it may be, ending with, well, if you know of anyone that is, potentially selling a practice, in your area, I'm in the market and I would just want to introduce myself. I'd really appreciate it if you, would let me know if you hear anything. Here's my contact information. Very easy way to be able to do it. Very, not, nonchalant. And you'd be surprised how many people want to genuinely help somebody else. I know a lot of people are probably thinking like, well, why would he tell me that there's a practice for sale? Because all he's doing is creating competition. And you'd be surprised. Not many people care about that kind of stuff. If they've already got their things going for them, if their life's kind of already where they want to be, it doesn't hurt them at all to be able to send somebody your way. It doesn't hurt at all. It could even potentially be helping a friend. They may know somebody that wants to get out of it, and they just haven't had the ability or the opportunity to. And so by them making that connection, they're doing the favor to a friend as well as, hopefully to you, who is a new friend. So you never know. So don't take those things for granted. They can work. Another way to be able to approach a dentist is to send an anonymous letter. So you can write letters. Some companies will do this for you. Some CPA firms do it for you. My company has never done it before. I've heard of other people doing it. I've just never really heard a great level of success of doing it, anonymously. But basically what you do is you have a company that gets a letter together for you and says, hi, Dr. Smith, my name is Jonathan Van Horn, and I am a dental CPA who has a client that is looking to acquire a practice that looks a lot like yours. This dentist is very well regarded, has a great amount of care and really cares about his patients, yada, yada, yada. If you or anyone are considering selling your practice, we have a potential buyer looking for one similar to what you have. If you'd be interested in this, you can give me a phone call and I can tell you a little bit more about it, hear a little bit more about your practice, and potentially maybe we can get something together. But for reasons, for blah, blah, blah reason, our client has asked to remain anonymous until we get farther down the process, maybe due to job security or maybe due to, whatever it may be, who knows. So anonymous mailers, they are a thing, but I think that the next option is better, and that's just a personal letter. This is a really great way to be able to get to hit a kind of a spray and pray kind of way of doing it. The shotgun approach of just, or machine gun approach of hitting a bunch of people at once is sitting down and writing a bunch of letters to a bunch of people and sending it, to the offices and say, hey, same thing, but don't be anonymous of, hi, Dr. Smith, this is Dr. J that is looking for a dental practice in your area. I'll let you up online. I see that you've been in the area for a long time, or seen that you've been in the area and have established a practice. And I didn't know if maybe you or someone that is looking to sell their practice or phase out of a practice or whatever it may be. So that's a way to be able to do it. And finally, the last one, is, to actually just show up to the office and say, hey, can I talk to the doctor? And try and, shake hands and meet them and do the exact same things we talked about earlier. So in terms of dentists, the 5 different ways I was saying to contact them: phone calls, going out to lunch, anonymous mailers, personal mailers, and then finally, just showing up and having a meeting or trying to get a meeting in person. Probably the last one is the one that I would, tell you not to do very often because it's time consuming and it's also, somewhat intrusive to some people. But 100% happens probably every day. So the last place to find practices for sale, websites, they work. There's definitely websites that can help you find dental practices. Dental Town, there's a lot of classifieds on there. Facebook groups nowadays, there's opportunities that come up on there every once in a while. Email list, Craigslist, believe it or not, I've seen practices for sale on Craigslist. So, check out websites. There are ones to be able to do it. However, if I would really, really, really be surprised if just an amazing practice ever even made it to a website. And the reason being is that most practice sales, most really great practices that come up for sale are sold to someone that the seller has a personal relationship with. Bar none. So I'm going to repeat that because it's really important. I just talked about all the ways to be able to find different potential practice opportunities for sale. I will say it again. The absolute greatest acquisition opportunities typically come from personal relationships, whether that be a family member, whether that is your old personal dentist that you went to growing up, whether that went to a friend of a friend, whether that went to an associate to doctor, or from whatever it may be. There's typically some type of personal relationship that has occurred for these really, really great acquisition opportunities that I've personally seen. That's kind of a common thread that I've seen along a lot of different acquisition opportunities. So anyway, those are how to find the practices for sale. Again, what we're trying to do here is we're not trying to find just one singular practice. We're trying to find a lot of different potential opportunities so that we can analyze different ones so that we can then decide on a practice for sale to purchase. Line them up, pick out the best one, the prettiest one in the group, and then try and purchase it. So that is today's episode. Next week, we're going to look more at how to look at those different practices, what to look at, and how to pick the right one for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of different practices that I personally see people analyzing, as well as how to know which one's the right one for you. So I'll see you next week for this part, and thanks for being a listener.
What's up, guys? Are you one of the many docs out there that know that there's just a ton of content and information out there that is designed to help you become a better business owner, but you don't know where to look or to spend your time, what to read, what to listen to, what to ingest, of what to be able to take in to educate yourselves to be a better business owner? You're not alone. I get this comment or this question almost every day from listeners of the podcast, as well as other dentists that I speak to every day. So what I've done to be able to combat that is I've gathered up my 4 most favorite books to give to you guys so that you can learn about business. Now, these are business books that are specifically designed to teach you about the different core concepts and skills you need to be a better business owner. And I'm actually going to be giving away a set of these 4 books every single month to Start Your Dental Practice podcast listeners. I'm really excited about it. So in order to find out what these 4 books are, as well as to enter yourself into the contest to receive a free copy of these books, all you got to do is text the word 4 books. That is FOURBOOKS. One word, no space, FOURBOOKS. And I will send you an email about what the 4 books are, my suggestions, why I think they're so great for you to be able to listen to, and you'll also be entered into the contest. And don't worry, if you already have the books, or if you already read them, then you'll still be entered into the contest, and you just let me know, and I'll just give you an Amazon gift card instead of sending you the books. So, guys, this is my way to thank you guys for being listeners of the podcast. I hope that you'll text the word 4 books, FOURBOOKS, to 33444. Again, that's 33444. And you'll be able to save a bunch of time on finding out what books you need to be reading. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice.